In this episode of the Tracer podcast, we talk to trail running legend Max King. Max is a world champion and has wins in very short, steep mountain races all the way up to long ultra marathons. In this episode, we talk about how he trains, what common pitfalls to avoid, how to have a successful race day. We also talk about Max's efforts in helping kids at his trail running camps. Final question we talk about is, will Max King run the Barkley Marathons? We'll find out. Okay, today on the Tracer podcast, it's my honor to interview Max King. No doubt, Max is one of the most well-known mountain runners over the past 15 years. He's the winner of the World Mountain Running Championships in 2011 and also the IAU World Championships in 2014 in the 100-kilometer distance. He's a four-time Olympic trials qualifier in both the steeplechase and in the marathon. And this guy has some world-class chops when it comes to training and racing. So thanks so much, Max, for being on the Tracer podcast with us.
And you forgot one, Joey. I wanted to emphasize my Martinez Taco Mile. I'm the champion there too. And that was an important win for me. That was during the COVID years when, we were having a lot of difficulties. And so that was part of my upbringing and really what established me on the racing scene. So
Absolutely. And that was actually going to be my first question. So I'm so glad you brought it up.
I figured, yeah.
The highs and lows of your career, and that I knew would shoot straight to the top of the conversation.
Yes,
absolutely. Yeah. So Max and I got to know each other after, it was a couple of years ago. I was watching on YouTube. I was watching a rerun of the Mount Marathon race up in Alaska. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the race, it's not a marathon, even though it's called Mount Marathon. It's actually a 5K with about as extreme of vertical as you can get. So Max, just describe the Mount Marathon race for us a little bit from somebody who,
it's the greatest race ever.
You know what? Before we even go there, let me finish my story of how I got to know you. So Max wins the race, okay, and I'm watching this thing and I'm thinking, dang, this guy's everywhere. He just pulled off a Mount Marathon win, which is I view as a very competitive, difficult race. And at the time, we were knee deep in building some of the beginnings of Tracer, and so I got on Instagram, found Max, sent him a text message. And here we are today. We'll talk a little bit about that story of how we got to know each other better. But rewinding now back to the race, tell us about Mount Marathon.
Yeah, I view that as if there was ever, I always tell everybody, I don't have a favorite race, right? Every one of them is totally different and everything. But if there were ever a favorite race for me, that would be it. Mount Marathon is incredible. Just everything around it, the people, the race itself, the community. It's up in Seward, Alaska on 4th of July every year. It's been going for, I think, over 100 years now. Maybe it's at 90. I can't remember the anniversary that was a couple of years ago. It was 90 or 100. Long running race anyway. And it's a 5K, like you said, straight up Mount Marathon to the top and back down. It's one of those races that started as a bar bet. So it's going to be, a good one. And so the bar bet was, can you make it from the bar in town to the top and back in an hour? That was the original bet. And the first
And what's the vertical on this race?
The vertical is 3,000 feet. Yeah. So it's total 3,000 feet up. And you're talking in a mile and a half, right? Because you got to split it in half. You got to come back down. Mile and a half. But half mile is through town, which is pretty much flat. So basically you're doing 3,000 feet in about a mile. It's a hike up, turn around the top. Your lungs are burning, legs are burning. Turn around, scream back down into town. It's about 32 minutes up now for the winning men's times and 10 minutes down. That's kind of the gist of it. But you come down into town, you run down the street though, and there's 20 to 30,000 people lining the streets. and it's unlike any other race that, like trail race especially, that you do. And it's just the atmosphere there is incredible. The whole state gets into it, and it's just everybody there knows what it is, and it's super cool.
Yeah. So any steeper and you're having to rope up almost. It's like
And you,
it's any steeper and it's like a legitimate rock climb. Am I right?
yeah, yeah, and there's part of the
Getting
course
close
where
to
you should
that?
probably be roped up. Yeah.
Yeah, there's from what I know about it, there's kind of, and it's kind of a cool race because it has some variance, right? Like you don't have to go the same exact way. Like you have some flexibility. It's basically get up this thing and back down as fast as you can. Obviously, you have to take the course on the road to get there and then kind of come around. But my understanding is that there's actually some options you can take.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's kind of started out as any way you want to go, and now it's kind of been defined down into like two or three kind of options, basically. And the up, you have basically three little options down at the bottom, and then you get funneled into like kind of one track up, and then
Mm.
it's kind of one track down until the base where you can kind of split again and go one of two different ways. And it's, at the bottom, it splits because you've got one section of it is cliffs, one section of it is roots that is basically like you're hanging on the roots with your hands. And then one, they've cut like a switchback into the side of the hill to make it a little bit easier and less dangerous if you want to take that way too. So, yeah, there's little options here and there. It's been kind of distilled down over the years into one route for the fastest route. But
Yeah. So you come down off of this mountain after basically climbing up, and just kamikaze down, just crazy, like pretty risky, I would imagine. Like if you fall in some of those places, you're gonna be hurt. And they do, there's people who come in the finish line. Almost everybody comes back with a little bit of blood. It seems like,
yeah,
but you
yeah,
come back down into the city, and one of the best parts of this race is that these Alaskans are just lining the street and just yelling and watching you go by. What was it like to come down out of the trees there and realize you were going to win this race and just have all those people there just screaming?
it's I mean it's like a really cool feeling because you come down, you kind of like slow down, come down the cliffs, and then they have this big rock that kind of at the base right before you head back into town. And this is like it's like Victory Rock, right? So you stand, like a lot of people will like stop there for a second, put their hands up, and then continue on down into town. And it's like you hit that, and I mean, you still don't know if you're going to win unless you're like way ahead, but you can slide down it. You can, like, people do like tricks off of it. People jump off of it. It's like this cool little thing right before you like start your way into town. But there's
Yeah.
all of these people like lining that, like the chute right there as you kind of come back into town. And I mean, it's just such a cool feeling, like knowing, what you've done, got up to the top of the mountain, turn back down, turn around, come back down, and then you're going to win this thing. That's cool. So,
Yeah. Amazing. It reminds me a little bit about Duke basketball, and I'll tell you why. Duke basketball is one of the best college basketball programs in the history of college basketball, right? But their arena is teeny, right? It's all packed in. They've got all of these students lined up right there on the side of the court, and it's packed and it's not that big. And Seward, Alaska is not a big city, right? And yet you
no.
got thousands of people packed in downtown Seward, Alaska, watching this amazing race, watching their local friends, because there's a lot of Alaskans that run the race, people who are from around there. But you also get this international draw. Like you're there. There's all kinds of really world class runners. Killian Jornet himself has run this a couple times, I believe, maybe just one time. All kinds of amazing athletes are coming in now from around the world to race this thing. And I think it's because of that environment, right? Like, who doesn't want to race in that kind of environment? What a cool thing. And hopefully it's the beginning of more of that kind of interest and excitement in the USA, right? There's not a lot of USA races that have that kind of vibe. So it'll be cool to watch more events like that growing in the coming years.
Yeah, and it's like I think that one's like a pretty unique event. I've raced over in Europe enough, at these bigger races and stuff. And it just has this like uniquely Alaskan feel to it because it is so homegrown and it doesn't get a lot of like media attention. It doesn't have a lot of commercialization, and
Mhm.
international athletes kind of come and go from it, like Killian and stuff. Um, but like it's still primarily Alaskan, and it feels like it's still, and that's what's kind of cool about it. There's other races out there that are doing a really good job, like Broken Arrow, Mammoth Trail Fest, of kind of simulating like that European feel, where the race is like it's a really cool European or a really cool trail race. You kind of come in and out of a village, and you have a lot of spectators and a lot of events going on throughout the weekend. But it has a different vibe to it than like the Mount Marathon does, and like they're great. I love what like Broken Arrow and Mammoth are doing, and they're doing a really good job of kind of building the sport of trail running. But it, I mean, just Mount Marathon just has this different vibe to it, and that's unique to it. And I don't think that'll ever change, which is cool about it, which is what I love.
Yeah, definitely a special race. Speaking of other special races that are coming up, Western States is just around the corner. And in your long history of races, and you have dozens, I mean, how many total races have you participated in? Let's call them major races. I mean, 100 or more?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's so hard to say. I mean, I'm at the point where I don't race as much as I used to, but I still get in 10, 15 races a year. And it used to be like 15 to 20. Big
Yeah.
ones were, less than that. But yeah, it's a lot, which is
Yeah,
cool.
so let's zoom in on two races. I believe you've run Western States two times.
Yep.
And I'm bringing
What?
this up because you're somebody who's had success in both very steep, like super technical mountain running, like the Mount Marathon 5K with 3,000 feet of vert, um, but also top 10, top five at Western States, if I understand correctly.
Yep. Totally.
And then also having a DNF at Western States. So let's zoom into your Western States experiences, given that's a race that's coming up. Let's tell us about your first Western States. How did that race go? How did you prepare for it, and what was it like?
Well, little known fact is that I've actually started States 3 times. I
Oh,
have two
wow.
DNFs in Western States. The
Okay.
first one was in 2008. I was coming off, or 2009 actually. I was coming off of like the Olympic trials in 2008. I did my first 50K that year, a week after the Olympic trials. The next spring, I jumped into American River, 50 miler, just trying to get into the sport of trail running and ultras, and did that and got a ticket into Western States because I won it.
Hmm.
Then I like a week after that, my IT band locked up and I got injured. And like that was right after I took the spot into Western States, paid my entry fee, and like was injured for about 6 weeks after that. And there's like no way I'm going into Western States coming off of an injury. I just was not going to do that. But I already had my spot. There was like no wait list or anything at that point, and had my spot paid for. So I did it, and I went in, I started because I wanted that experience because I knew at some point I was going to be doing it. And I ran up to the top of the escarpment. I waved, watched everybody like continue on over to Auburn and Forest Hill, and then turned around and came back down. That's all I did that year. And then
Interesting.
I guess it was like 5 years later, I finally got back into Western States and completed it. So
Yeah, and that's the one you've took fourth place overall. Am I right?
yeah, in 2014. And the build up for that went really, really well. I was putting in a ton of mileage for that year, probably 100 to 120 miles a week at that point, with a lot of like vert and mountain running, trying to get my quads ready. I was doing double long runs on the weekends, usually like a really hilly, 6 to 10,000 foot day on Saturday, and then turning around the next day and doing a 20 to 25 miler on the roads, just faster, to try to like get that like my leg speed, like the endurance, but also the leg speed up from the after the climbing day, and just on
Wow.
doing it on tired legs too. So I would have 50 miles in a weekend, a lot of weekends leading up to that, and I felt like I was in really good shape. And I mean, I think I was in really good shape. It was just that going into a 100 miler, I'd never done one before. It was my first 100 miler, so I didn't know totally how to, like, my nutrition side of things, how to pace it, yada yada yada. There's a lot that I did not know going into that. But training was one of those things that I felt did go really well, and there's not a lot that I would change in that training leading up to it. But there are things that I would change about the race, which was what I was trying to do going back into it for in 2021 when I did it again. It just, I waited a little bit too long. I was like, I had a little bit too much time in between, not enough 100 milers to really learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
And the training was good, but it's like, well, I was also 41 years old at that point, and so it wasn't as high quality, wasn't the same intensity level. I've learned a lot over the years, so I think my nutrition was probably a little bit better. But that year in 2021, it just happened to be like that, like just a really hot year, and I was not maybe as prepared for the heat. Maybe I was just as prepared, but it ended up being hotter than what was expected. Ended up with some heat exhaustion around Rucky Chucky, and ended up dropping at Green Gate after I couldn't control my body temperature. Like, I was swinging wildly from hot to cold. Like, I jumped in the river down at Rucky Chucky. I froze to death by the time I got across the river. And then 5 minutes later on the climb to Green Gate, I was like overheating again. And I just, like, I could not control my body temperature anymore. So,
Wow. Yeah, it seems like that's a common theme when it comes to Western states, is that dealing with the heat, especially if you're going to do the top 10 like you're shooting for, or even win the race, heat training would be very high on the list of things that you need to be 100% ready for, because it's brutal to spend that amount of time at that speed. Because Western States is a fast race, right? Like for 100
yeah.
miler, mountainous 100 milers, it's net downhill, and people are not hiking in that race. Like, they are running it all the way through, which is
Well,
insane.
Jim's running it all the way through. Most people are still
Yeah,
hiking the climbs. But
yeah,
yeah,
fair enough.
yeah. I mean, it is a fast race, though, right? I mean, you're running it in, like, Jim's running it in 14:30 to 14:45, and most other people are between 15 and 16 hours for a 100 miler. That's pretty fast. And so you're running most of the way. You're having to clip along late in the race. And yeah, so it is fast race.
Yeah. How much do you think, a little bit of a training question here, and a performance question, but what's your strategy for something like that, where you're going out in the heat, in terms of how much to hydrate, how much sodium to intake, how much of the other electrolytes? Like, what do you try to do? What's your latest thinking on hydration for hot weather running?
Yeah, I'll change it a little bit because I'm less worried about hydration than I am about staying cool. And
Mm,
so when I'm in a hot race like that, my preparation leading into it is to be as heat acclimated as possible. And then during it is to stay as cool as possible. So I'm trying to stay wet all the time, have ice packs on me. So I wear arm sleeves and pack those full of ice so that, like, they're hitting this artery and vein here, trying to cool my body down. I'm putting, like, ice packs around my neck so that I'm staying cool. My whole thing is trying to keep my core temperature as low as possible for as long as possible. And because if you can stay cool, then you're not as worried about that hydration piece of it. Hydration is hydration. You need to stay hydrated, but I'm not like, I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on that. I'm drinking to thirst. Usually in races now, I'm taking a lot less salt because I rely on my nutrition for that salt intake.
mm.
Sometimes I'll take a supplement if it's a really hot race. Then I'll pop a salt pill maybe every hour or so. But a lot of the nutrition that I'm taking in with goo and stuff has electrolytes already in it, that I'm utilizing and stuff, and so I don't need to supplement that as much as I feel like I used to. And most of it has to do with carbohydrate intake and stuff like that that I'm really kind of worried about and trying to stay on top of as I go through a long race like that.
Yeah, so a typical goo or a typical energy gel will likely have 100 milligrams of sodium or less. Typically, now there's certainly, that fluctuates. There's some variance there. There's also companies out there who are really specializing on trying to help you identify how much sodium you're losing per hour when you sweat and trying to replace all of that. And usually it's in the order of, on the low end, maybe 500 milligrams, half a gram, all the way up to some people, on the high end might lose 2 grams of salt per hour. I
Mm.
consider myself a very salty sweater. So what's your take on, cause you kind of said something that I think we should drill into just a little bit, that you are backing off your sodium intake, but I think a lot of people are actually going the other direction. So what's your take on that approach to really be ingesting, a gram of sodium every hour? Because
Um,
I would challenge the idea you could get that all in your nutrition, unless your nutrition really had,
right.
250 grams maybe per gel or something.
Yeah. And I guess I would turn it back and say, do you need that much? You know,
Mm-hmm.
or are you just sweating out what you're putting in? So the idea, like, there's some studies that came out quite a while ago that kind of were showing that maybe you don't need as much, like sodium, electrolytes, whatever, as previously thought, because what you took in, you ended up sweating out. And so when you measure what's coming out in your sweat, it's also like like depends on what you're ingesting, the
Mm-hmm.
ratio, right? Your muscles obviously need some certain amount of electrolytes in order to function properly. But I think a lot of people also confuse when their muscles start cramping. They confuse the electrolyte issue or low electrolytes for just fatigue. So your
Mm-hmm.
muscles they'll fatigue or they'll cramp for two different reasons. One will be low electrolytes. One will be just fatigue. If you're say you're running 20 miles a week and you jump into a 50 miler, most likely you're going to be fatigued and your muscles are going to cramp, right? It's not going to have anything to do with electrolytes. And so people need to realize there are two different reasons why you might be cramping. And just shoving more electrolytes in your face is not going to solve the issue, right? Like no amount of electrolytes is going to help you to stop cramping. You're just tired. And so people need to understand that, one. Two, it's a very individualized thing as far as like how many electrolytes you need or how much electrolyte you need. And then three, it's like which type of electrolytes you need. So some
Mm-hmm.
people have a different mix or ratio of electrolytes that they're going to be sweating out and losing. Like I, for one, notice when I start cramping, it's usually because I'm low in magnesium. Oh, verified through one blood test, but also trial and error of just ingesting. Like I'll take in sodium. I do eat a lot of sodium in my diet. There's no way that I need more sodium through like supplementation, right? But I often have low magnesium through blood test results, and so I'll take in magnesium and like the next night, like say my feet are cramping at night, which happens pretty often. The next night I'll take in some magnesium, and my feet won't be cramping. So kind of trial and error to figure out like what type of electrolyte you're low in. Blood testing is a great it's a great option for people who want to know a little bit more about themselves,
Mm-hmm.
because it can give you values, rather than doing just more trial and error on that type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a controversial subject because, I mean, recently with the UTMB uh, duel between Jim Walmsley and Zach Miller, that was so awesome to watch this last year. They were interviewing Zach Miller at the end, and he said that his girlfriend is a nutritionist, and she had encouraged him to pop the salt caps the whole race. And so I think quote out of Zach Miller's mouth was, "I can't count how many salt pills I took during the race." Now, was it, to your point? Was it, sure, you sweated it out, you took it in, you sweat it out, and it was maybe a placebo effect? Don't know. I also think your point around, yeah, like the individualized side of this. I certainly have noticed that I feel better in my recovery when I've got my sodium levels back up, because I tend to get sick when I've been running in the heat, and then I start drinking a lot of water. It almost, it dilutes my sodium levels. But to your point, I can't quite put my finger on if taking the sodium during the running is actually helping me. So it's a fascinating topic that maybe that's one that doesn't have any easy answers, but certainly in your mind, you think people maybe overdo it sometimes?
Yeah, well, they definitely overdo it sometimes. Is it going to hurt you to overdo it? No. Is it going to hurt you to underdo it? Yeah. And so, like,
Mm.
you made a good point there of like when you're taking in a lot of water, because you're a heavy sweater, you're taking in a lot of water to replenish the water, right? And if you're just taking in water, then you are diluting that electrolyte in your system. And then you do
Mm.
need to balance that with like bringing electrolyte on board, whether that's through food, nutrition gels, or supplementation. Like you do need to like balance that, and so that's a big piece of like that like that's not, I guess that's not what I'm referring to when I'm saying like just
Mm.
popping supplements. It's like you do need to balance like your water intake with electrolytes, especially when you're exercising and stuff, because you will dilute out those electrolytes if you're taking on more water than you're balancing out with your electrolytes that you're taking in through your nutrition. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad that you clarified that because I think that's huge. Is it the amount of salt that you're going to need, the amount of electrolytes that you're going to need, is going to be highly dependent on how much water you're ingesting as well. And that's something that you have to get right. That's a great point. I didn't realize that you were uh, kind of decoupling the two there in the previous things that you were saying.
yeah.
Um, so you're constantly doing different things. You When I think of Max King and what I respect so much about you, it's the fact that you're able to do and you do continue every year to try new kinds of running and to do different kinds of things. I mean, you've got Mount Marathon wins, you've got top five, top four at Western States. You have a pretty good speed goat. By the way, interviewed Sage Canaday in our last episode, and I made sure to bring up the mullet that you had in Speed Goat in one of Sage's videos. So
Yeah.
people have been chiming in all over the world asking if Max King's going to bring back the mullet.
I mean, it's like it's getting there, but it's not. This is like I need to actually chop this off. It meant to like I meant to cut it last night, and I've just like been putting it off. But the mullet is not making a return. My son has enough mullet for the entire family right now, so I'm gonna hold off on bringing that mullet back. But I will say that was a sweet mullet because I cut it into a mullet and then dyed it blonde. It was phenomenal. It was good.
Yeah, yeah. There's some great footage of you coming over Hidden Peak on that first big climb, and you've got your goo bottle, and I think Krapicka is right behind you, and you guys go running down, off into the descent with the mullet. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, back to my real point, which is you do a lot of different kinds of running. Recently, you went up and did a really fast steeplechase, like on the track, if I'm not mistaken. And another thing is you're a skimo racer now, and you're having a lot of success. We both raced the Wasatch Powder Keg together this last year, and believe you were top 10 in a very competitive ski mountaineering race. You're doing adventure racing. You just got back from Croatia, where you're doing all kinds of team adventure racing. So you're all over, and you have a lot of breadth to the way that you train. My question for you is, does that breadth really help you in your training? Do you think you would perform better if you really focused on a narrower set of events? Or do you feel like the breadth and doing different things and exposing your body to different things is actually a better form of base training where, as you get closer to a race that you really care about, you can zone it in? But what's your perspective on the effect that the diversity of events that you do has on your body?
So yes and no. Um, that's like answers to your questions. Yeah, I mean, if I could focus on one event for longer than I do, would I be better in that event? Absolutely. Would I still be running now if I had focused on steeplechase a little bit longer back in 2008? Probably not. And that's kind of that's my whole thing is like, um, ever since like I started running again back in about 2004, 2005, and I kind of made this like pact with myself. when I got back into the sport was always to make sure it's fun. And so that's my whole thing. It's like, I want to make sure it's fun. And if it ever gets to the point where it did in college for me, where I quit the sport for a while, then I've got to like hang it up and just not do it anymore. And that's part of the reason why I'm always doing different things, is because for me, it makes it a lot more fun and I stay more motivated by always continually switching things up. While still like, I want to get the best out of myself. I want to perform well. I want to train hard. And I have a good base level of training that I use and rely on to do well in specific events. But at the same time, like if I were to focus on one particular event for longer than 6 months or so, then yeah, I'd be better. But at the same time, like I wouldn't have as much fun at it. And so I like to change things up and always have, and I always will. So
Yeah, you're one of many people that I've paid attention to on this question. Some people I've had the chance to ask that directly, and other people I've just heard what they've said. And a couple people come to mind, which is, and those two people are Kilian Jornet and Eliud Kipchoge. And both of them were asked a form of that question, and their answers were the same, that when you enjoy your training, when that becomes part of the thing, that where you're really enjoying the process, it's not just about picking an event and saying, my goal in life is to go do well at that event, but viewing your training and as a lifestyle, as something that the process itself is valuable. That's where you get better at the sport. And I think that's another way of saying what you just did, that you enjoy going out and doing these team adventure races with your friends from Bend, right? And you enjoy diversifying the things that you're doing, and because of that enjoyment, it keeps you focused, it keeps you consistent, it keeps your volume high, and those things lead to success. Um, do you ever surprise yourself in that? Like I'm thinking of a specific thing that happened this winter, and I had been talking to you quite a bit as we worked on Tracer together, and we were both training for the powder keg and doing a lot of backcountry skiing and a lot of ski mountaineering style stuff. And then suddenly you had a 50K down in Mexico with a lot of vert. And I remember talking to you saying, "Hey, are you ready to go pound your legs on a steep 50K down in Mexico on the trails after being on the snow all winter?" And your answer was no.
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
you know, like how does that? How do you view that when you came away with the win, right? Your legs did just fine. How do you view the value of specificity getting ready for an event versus what happened this winter where you almost didn't prepare as much as you knew you could have, and yet you still came away with a pretty impressive result?
Yeah, and I mean that's the other side of specificity, right? Is like giving your body a little bit of time to recover, and not wearing it down so much to the point where you can't perform at a high level anymore, and just having a good balance in your life. And a lot of people will say that it's like, well, take a period of time off during the winter, like Killian does, just to ski, and you have a better training during the summer because you are fresher and you've had that big block of base training in the winter. And so from that respect, like that's a little bit different, but you have, you're building a lot of base training and aerobic capacity during the winter, and then you move into summer and you start that specific training like running. This winter, when I did the race down in Mexico, though, it was, right off of ski season. I'd been running a little bit. I always run during ski season a little bit. But was I ready for a 50K? No, absolutely not. But at the same time, like the specificity was there because I've been going uphill like for, all winter. And that was specifically what I'd been doing, was hiking uphill very fast. And so with a big vert race like I had down in Mexico, it's like I was not afraid of the uphills. I was worried about the downhills. And it was just like the uphills are fine. And then let's see what happens on the downhills and just get through that. Whereas, during the summer, it's kind of the opposite, where maybe I've been running a lot. The uphills are going to be the more challenging part. And the downhills, I don't have to worry about because I've been running enough and I'm not worried about pounding my legs to death because they've already, they've got that training in my legs and everything. So that was a little bit of a surprise this winter, just being able to pull that out, especially against some very good competition. And it went exactly how like I envisioned it. The uphills were great, felt really strong, and then the downhills. By the time I got to the end, they really hurt, and it was really hard to get down those hills. But luckily, it was like this type of running where it's so technical in downhills, it's muddy, so it tends to be a little softer. You don't have that just running gait where you're just pounding downhill on like concrete or something. It's very dynamic, and a lot of like jumping around and stuff, and so it tended to like favor me in that moment of being in ski season. So it just happened to work out perfect.
Awesome. Congratulations on an amazing performance down there. Okay, so complete this sentence for me, okay? You're wasting your time training if you go ahead.
That's a good question. I've never been asked that before. You're wasting your time training if you don't like it.
Wow. Okay. You're wasting your time training if you don't like it. Oh, okay. And I think we
Yeah,
know the
I
reasons. We already talked about why.
talked about why there. I mean, that's my perspective, because there are a ton of people um, that bang their head against the wall training and don't necessarily love it, that are just doing it for the races. And I
Hmm.
used to be one of those. I feel like, back in high school and college, like I trained, I didn't really like it. I just did it to beat people in the races and the weekends. Um, but it didn't last very long, honestly. Like I had to stop doing it, and I burnt out. And so, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, and
Okay,
somebody
yeah. How
like
about
you who
this?
okay.
You're wasting your time training if you go hard every day. That's the
All right.
biggest one. I don't think of it very often, but that is the biggest one that people come to me and they're like, "Yeah, I used to go hard every day, and then you told me not to go hard every day, and like I got so much better." And you're a good example of that too. But
Yeah,
there are a lot of
absolutely.
people out there that do that.
Yeah, I've told the story many times under many situations, and I've said it on this podcast that I was training hard every time I went out, which basically meant I could only run 3 or 4 days a week because I was always tired and it was accumulating. But I also just had no power. Like my engine would redline with no power output. Like all the internal stress was happening and none of the external stress or the external load was being produced. And it just got to the point where I was like, I'm doing something wrong here. And luckily I had some good mentors that got me on track and told me to do exactly that. Just back off. You need to be going easy more. And then I think you were very instrumental in my running development and to continue to be. I'm very much an amateur, not going to set any records or win any races likely, but I am getting better the older I get. And I think what happened with me is I went too easy too often. Like I actually just made a habit of never doing anything intense. And you were the one that kind of got me to see beyond that. And I've seen a lot of great results in my own life just by balancing a lot of easy running still. Like that is the basis of what my week looks like, but also throwing in that 1 day a week of something harder. And I'm generally training for longer stuff, but if you're a marathoner, maybe it's 2 times a week. Okay, so let's complete this sentence. You'll see real improvement, and maybe this is an obvious one, so you can just skip it if it's a regurgitation of what we just said, but you'll see real improvement in your fitness if go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I put it back to that same thing, but I think I'll phrase it a little bit differently though. If you balance your training correctly. And
Hmm.
so what I mean by that is like what you were just talking about, of like that balance between the intensity and the easy stuff. That's when you'll see real improvement. If you just run easy all the time, you're going to get really good at running easy all the time. But if you balance that and do have some intensity in there and some hard days, and we're specifically talking about working on your different physiological systems like your threshold, and your VO2 max, then that's when you're going to see that real improvement in there.
Yeah, and to me it feels like when I do 1 day a week of hard running where it hurts, and I'm either at threshold or maybe even doing VO2 max intervals over threshold for a few minutes. I feel like when I go back to my easy running, the economy is there on the easy running where it's like, wow, I'm keeping up with my friends right now and my heart rate's at like 130, whereas it used to be 150 when I was running with these guys, right? So I think there's something that's not just about having a faster top end, it's actually that the two systems are feeding each other. And to be a great runner, your whole system has to work well, right? Not just one piece. I've heard Killian refer to it as like metabolic flexibility. You got to have the ability to burn fat. You got to be able to go slow. You got to be able to go somewhere in the mid. You got to be able to go high. And but to echo your question, you'll see real improvement in your fitness if you get the balance right for what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, because each piece of that like develops a different part of your whole your whole athlete, right? And so you've got your aerobic capacity that you're working on, that lower end, the easy stuff up to threshold. You're working on efficiency through like that threshold and VO2 max. You're working on specific threshold, like your lactate threshold of your body being able to process all those metabolites in that threshold environment, and your VO2. And it's kind of a spectrum as it goes through these different physiological systems. And then you're working on your power output and your efficiency when you're trying to run VO2. I mean, you think about like you running at a very easy pace, your body can do that for a long time, right? And maybe your heart rate's at 140. Well, if you want to get that down to 130, it's like you need to run faster in order for your body to figure out how to just be mechanically more efficient. And so that when you
Mm-hmm.
run faster, you use the same amount of energy to do it. And that is when you need to run the really fast stuff, because when you run really fast, your body is saying like, get smoother, like get faster, get smoother, and get more efficient when you're doing that. And that's what's so great about those like VO2 sprint workouts, things like that, is your body is doing that mechanically, figuring out how to be more efficient when you're doing those. And that's why those are so important, even for an ultra runner. They're important because you're learning that efficiency.
Yeah, I love that. In fact, this morning I had a workout. I did 10 by 2 minutes with a 2 minute easy in between, kind of going up a steep street near my
Sweet.
house on the road, went up hard 2 minutes and then jogged down. And it was about 1 to 1. Like as far as I could go up, when I jogged down, I was in the same place. So I just kind of repeated that hill. And I was thinking, as I was actually doing one of these intervals, I was thinking about this, like certain systems are being taxed right now so hard that I can only do it for 2 minutes. And then I have to take a break to recharge that system and then tax it. And if you were to turn that into a 10 minute, like what's the difference between doing five in a row and not taking that break? Is that the system that will be taxed when you do 10 minutes in a row is likely a different system than the one that you're taxing when you do a 2 minute and then allow it to recharge. And so by getting very diverse with your workouts, you can find, key local systems that need to be pushed, that if you don't do those, you'll never be able to target those as the failure point. And that's kind of the beauty in training diversity and choosing the right workout, right? And do you do threshold? Do you do long intervals? Do you do short intervals? Good question. But the point of doing some of these faster things, even as an ultra runner, would be to make sure that the system that actually needs to be pushed is the one that gets pushed, right?
Yeah, and when you're saying that, you're talking about a spectrum. Like you're going to be hitting the same systems doing a 10-minute interval as you are on a 2-minute interval, but you're going to be hitting that system at different levels, right? Like I think that's
Mm-hmm.
you were both kind of saying the same thing, but you got kind of like that spectrum of like, yeah, you're still hitting those systems at a 10-minute interval. They're just being exercised at a different level, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. So let's one more complete the sentence here. You'll have a great race day if
what kind of a race are we doing, Joey?
Oh, you tell me. You tell
All
me.
right.
What's your favorite? Yeah, you get to answer that question. I'm
Well,
not going to taint it with my
the
thoughts.
the easy answer is an ultra, right? It's like if you're doing an ultra and you dial in your nutrition, you're going to have a great race because your body
Mhm.
is going to be able to handle it. But if you screw up your nutrition, you may not make it to the finish line or be a lot slower than what you're physically able to do. So I would go with
Awesome.
that.
Okay. So let's roll with that a little bit. Uh, and I love that because it doesn't matter how fast a race car is. If you don't put any gas in it, you're going to lose the race, right? If it's a dirt bike race, you get a couple laps around the track, whatever, and it's done, right? And it doesn't, and chemistry says that you're not going to move your body if there's not an ability to drive that system with a fuel, right? So race day nutrition on ultra marathons is absolutely critical. And I feel like in the 100 miler that I've done, what I did get right was eating enough, and it really helped me. And I think at the end, that the when I really started to slow down, I can almost trace it back to I probably needed another 100 calories an hour than I was getting, and that's why I started to struggle a bit. Um, but let's answer that question now for a sub ultra, maybe something that's an hour or two long. You'll have a great race day in your sub ultra. Maybe that's a marathon, maybe that's a 10K. If what?
You get in a good warm up. I think a lot of
Mm,
people out there neglect that performance side of like they do some workouts and they put in the hard work and they get to race day and it's like they rely on that hard work, but they don't prepare their bodies to do that hard work. And so one of the things that I noticed, like most people when they're trying to get better for like an event like that, a sub ultra distance thing, is they don't prepare their body on a daily basis to get the most out of the work that they're putting in, right? If that makes sense. Like if you were going to go do a VO2 max workout, if you do a full warm up, and I'm talking 10 to 20-minute easy jog, set of static or active isolated stretches, and a set of dynamic stretches, and then drills. Whole thing might take 30 to 40 minutes or so. That's 30 to 40 minutes that I feel like a lot of people aren't willing to put in before they start the hard work. But
mm,
if you do that before you put in that hard work, you're taking your intensity level from here, of what you'll be able to accomplish on that first interval throughout the workout, to here. And so you're already at a step above and getting more out of that work than if you hadn't done that warm up. And it's the same thing on race day. If you go into race day and you're standing around on the start line shivering because you're cold, and then you start that race, I mean, you're already putting yourself at a disadvantage because you have not warmed up. You should be sweating on that start line, basically. Unless it's an ultra or something like that, I get it. Like you don't want to warm up for it. But even on an ultra start line, jog a little bit. You're going to feel a lot better than if you start out shivering like this and have to get out of there. So, like on a sub ultra, you should be sweating when you're standing on that start line, even if it's 30 degrees out, and be very comfortable temperature at that point because you've done a proper warm up. And now your body is ready to go hard off of that start line and ready to go meet your full potential in that race.
yeah, and echoing my own experiences with what you're teaching us here, in the Wasatch Powder Keg, which is a competitive skimo race that we mentioned before. We both raced that together this year. It's here in Utah. It was at Solitude Resort this year, and whenever I do a hard skimo effort, the first uphill always just feels like I'm gonna die. And this year I trained with Tracer. I used your schemo plan on Tracer. I had done all the work. I had put in the long days. I'd put in the normal days. I'd done a little bit of running. I'd done your intervals. And I was feeling good. I felt like my fitness, I was seeing gains. I saw that I was getting faster, but I was really worried about that first uphill because I just know it kills me. And it was awesome to have you there and be able to talk to you because you encouraged me to do exactly what you just said. You said, you need to get out there and warm up. in this way. You kind of showed me how to do some strides, some ski strides, really tell your body like, hey, we're going to be working hard. So kind of like wake it up, slap it around a little bit. Let's go. And I remember that first hill feeling like it was hard, not going to lie. Like it's a schemo race, it's going to
Yep.
hurt, but it wasn't that same feeling of like, oh no, what am I going to do for the rest of this race? It was more of a strength feeling. It was more of a power output feeling. So
Mhm.
that's awesome advice. So
Yeah.
if you're running an ultra, you have to figure out how to get those calories in. And if you're running a sub ultra, figure out those warm ups. Two awesome pieces of advice from Max King himself. Um, let's talk a little bit about Tracer, and not from like an infomercial standpoint here, like just kind of peeling back the curtains on what we're doing here. So as I ask you these questions, I want you to give us the real Max King answers. Like you don't have to sit here and say how awesome Tracer, these aren't softballs for you to smack out of the park here just to make us look good or something. But that initial time I reached out to you on Instagram and I said, hey, congrats on Mount Marathon. I just watched the footage. That's amazing. And let me tell you about something that we're building. Do you remember that message coming through, and what were your thoughts when I reached out to you? And kind of as the follow up to that, like what really, because you really were the first coach, the first professional that we pulled into the platform, who you've been part of the development of this product from a very, very early stage. What was it that from that initial text to where we are now, which is still early days, but what really happened in your own mind, and why did you decide to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember that vaguely. I don't remember exactly what I said or what you said to kind of hook me, but I was definitely intrigued, and I remember like thinking like, well, I've been like coaching people for years, right? I don't know how long it's been, 15 years or something like that. But recently I've gotten so busy that I just have not had time to like really coach people to the best of my ability that I want to do. And so I've kind of dropped, like I don't have as many clients and stuff, and I don't have the time to do it. And so I think what you said in that is that you're building this coaching platform that is scalable. And that's what I was interested in, is being able to still coach people, but just have more time to do like the coaching side of things, and not just writing plans all the time. And so with what you were describing is that I could put in the coaching, which is what we've done, right? And now I have the ability to coach more people with my training plans using the AI technology that you've built. And that's what I like about it. And I mean, just to kind of like go on the AI tangent, like I have a hard time with AI the way that it's being utilized right now, because from my perspective, it's like if you put in something into ChatGPT and ask for something out of it, nobody has willingly put data in there. They're stealing data from the entire world that everybody else has done for these outputs, right? And they're just sampling everything. And I don't like that. Like I have a hard time with that. And so I wasn't of the opinion, like I did not want somebody to build an AI coaching platform that just pulled from the internet and said, hey, here's this plan for you, go train, and have it be crap. So like what I liked that what you were doing was you were taking our data, my data, to build my plans. And that's how it gets done. And so I am confident in it. I know it's coming from me, and it's 100% my own data that I'm using to coach people. And I love that. And I think that is a very responsible way to use AI, that I agree with. So,
Yeah, and for those who don't know, we share profits of the program sales with the coaches. So when a coach does this, they get paid for it, and that's important too, because we want the coaches to succeed. We believe in human coaching as much as it's available, but we also want professionals who have dedicated their lives to like really nailing this stuff when they're helping you nail your goal, even through the AI, we want those people to be rewarded and to be taken care of financially. Um, and the cool thing, the thing that I love is that I have been using your programs on Tracer and some of the others when they're appropriate, but like I'm getting faster,
Yeah,
and I
that's awesome.
rarely reach out to you for any kind of workout recommendation, right? Like I'm not trying to get you on the phone saying, "Hey, what's my workout today?" I just look at the app and I kind of got, and I don't have to do exactly all the time what the app says. If I want to do something else, I go with my friends and I pop it in and it adjusts. And it's kind of one of those things where we see people sign up and kick the tires, and some of them leave without really even knowing what it's doing. And I think one of the challenges we have is to really help people understand the sophisticated, because it looks like a simple app when you open it up. It's just like, oh, here's my calendar. I just do this. And it almost just looks like a PDF in digital form, right? Like not a PDF, but it's just like a digital, like Training
Yeah,
Peaks
like
does or whatever, where you
calendar.
just get your static workouts. But it's doing so much more under the scenes. And the challenge has been really to help people understand the sophistication and the merit and the value. People are like, why is this $50 a month or whatever? And it's because the coach's intelligence really is embedded there and you're getting access to it. So, that's obviously, we're biased. We are, both of us have a lot of stake in Tracer here. And so it is a biased conversation, but I think it's authentic and it's real. It's a real conversation. We have no interest in building things that aren't actually useful or that we don't believe has the value that we're asking people to pay. But let's talk about some other products. What are some like, if you go on a long run and you have a vest on, what are some of the products that Max King packs in his vest? I'm assuming it's a Solomon vest.
Yeah.
Maybe, like tell us what gear should you share with the world here around, like, what are the tricks by Max King?
There's
What's
no
in the vest?
tricks. There's no tricks, right? I mean, I'm pretty minimal runner. So if I go out on a long run of like a couple of hours, then I'm not taking very much, and I'm not taking as much as I should be. We had this discussion the other day. Like, I need to start like actually training my nutrition side of things, like taking in more nutrition, more water on these long runs that I'm doing, because that's one thing that I am pretty terrible at. But I mean, if I'm out on a longer long run and I take a vest, it's my Solomon vest. I'd pack it with some goos, some chews, a couple of waffles, and off I go. One thing I will say that I learned last summer, nothing against goo, because I may not do this in like a really high performance race, but our nerd clusters are like my go-to snack on my like long adventures now, that are amazing. So those,
uh,
and the little Debbie's, little Debbie's oatmeal cream pies, or the peanut butter ones. You know how many calories those have in one cookie? 500. 500 calories in one cookie. So if I'm out there for like 24 hours, I pack my bag full of those.
yeah, there's a lot of fat in there though too, right? So there's a difference between your carb
Yeah.
calories and
Yeah.
your fat, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's
But
like, well, it's probably mostly fat, honestly, but it's calories. So if I'm like going for 24 hours, I'm pretty chill and pretty mellow, and so I don't
yeah.
mind some other like some fat and some protein calories in there, and it doesn't need to be all carbohydrates. So
So I have a friend, and I'm in this running group here north of Salt Lake, and we do these long runs on Saturdays. And one of our members packs candy for everybody in these little baggies, and nerd clusters are always in there.
right,
So
because they're
Daisy,
so
if you're
good.
listening, the nerd clusters are on point according to Max King. Nice job.
You want a funny story? So when I did the Steens Crossing, that big day with Jackson Brill last summer,
Yeah.
well, we went to the store, and this is how I learned about nerd clusters, by the way. So we went to the store, and he's like, "Oh, nerd clusters! I'm getting some of these." And so I got a bag, whatever the 8-ounce bag was for the entire thing. He picked up 2 or 3 bags. I can't remember, 2 or 3 bags, and basically he ate nerd clusters for the first 12 hours of that like entire adventure. It was 27 hours it took us to do this Steens crossing. So he was eating nothing but nerd clusters for like 12 hours, and it ruined him. Like he didn't want to eat another nerd cluster the rest of the summer.
Oh
And
no.
I had one bag to like split the entire time, and so I was eating other things and stuff. And so I absolutely love him after that, and I've been like taking him on every adventure race and turning the adventure racing scene in onto like nerd clusters now, and they all love them, and they share them with their kids and everything else. So that's amazing. And yeah, I still eat them. They're good.
Yeah, be careful, because if you OD on that stuff like your buddy did, you
Yeah, you don't
burn
want to
out
do
your
that.
neurons, right?
I
Like
know.
it's just overload, and all of a sudden those synapses that used to like it are just, overloaded and burned out and are never going to reform. I think I kind
Yeah.
of did that with the oatmeal cream pies, actually, because back
Yeah.
in the day I used to like love those things, and then one day I just ate one too many, and suddenly it was like,
Ooh.
what's going on? I don't want these anymore.
Yep. No, it's
Yeah.
totally true. You gotta balance it, right? I used to
Oh
like
yeah.
same thing with like goo gels and stuff like that. Like, if
Oh
you want to be able to eat a goo gel in a race and still enjoy it, you gotta like kind of balance it out with some other stuff, Because I mean, goos. I love goos, and I ate 75 of them during my 2014 Western States. 75 blueberry
wow.
pomegranate gels.
Yep.
I couldn't eat another blueberry pomegranate gel for like 2 weeks after that, and then it came back because they're like my favorite. So
Yeah, I've started to make, as you know, we've talked about this a little. I've started to make my own gel, and one of the things
yeah,
I love about it is that I can water it down. That's a trick that I would encourage anybody. Like, even if you're doing like a store, like a packaged goo or any other gel, you can put it in another bottle and then shake some water in. Like, you have to get pretty aggressive with the shaking, but watering it down for me is game changer, because there's no chewing. I can just like get it down and it's out of the way, and it's less about the taste buds. But another thing I love about making my own is that I get it every week. I get to invent a new flavor, right? So my wife had this brilliant idea of root beer gel. So I made root beer gel, and it tasted like a root beer float. It was amazing. And
yeah,
then that led to creamsicle and pina colada and
yeah.
all kinds of awesome stuff. And
Well, the
yeah.
root beer, like I had Goo make root beer. I don't know how many years ago it was, but they had root beer around for like a year and a half or something until
Mm-hmm.
nobody no decided nobody wanted it except for me, so they
Mm,
stopped making it. But I still have a box of root beer gel though. So
that's
yeah,
awesome.
it's good. It's tasty.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So let's talk about what's next for Max King. I know you have a lot of trail camps this summer. Tell us about the trail camps, and then as a follow up, what other races you have coming up and what's on the horizon for you yourself. But let's talk a little bit about your camps. You do a number of camps. What are those camps? Who are they for? And who might be interested in those?
Yeah, got one coming up next week. So it's camp season once we get into summer and the school kids get out of school. So I've got running camp next week. This one is my high school kids running camp. It's an overnight camp for 5 days. We go somewhere on the west. Every year I move it around just to keep it so that kids that are coming back stay interested in it. Last year we were in Tahoe. This year we're in the Redwoods. I do another one in Mount Shasta one year, and then around here in Bend one year as well. And I kind of moved around and just hitting kind of like trails and stuff. And I started these running camps back in 2016, so it's been, what are we at, like 8 or 9? I think I'm on 9 years now. So um, when I started them, part of the point of this camp was not to just like pick a cool place and go do some trail running, was actually to like help the kids like learn about trail running and what it was, and how to be a trail runner, right? And so one of the big things with camp is talking about stewardship. So one of the days we do trail maintenance and we talk about stewardship in trail running. One of the days we do like kind of an orienteering clinic where I talk about map and compass navigation. And when I have them go out and do an orienteering course, we talk about trail running safety and wilderness tips, so that they feel confident getting out there in the woods and being on a trail with no one else around and being able to find their way back to a car. So everything from like figuring out like, what app to use and how to like plug in a route, follow the route, and then get back to your car, stuff like that. Um, we spend one of the days is my really big epic long day, and so we spend like usually about 8 hours outside just moving. And with this day, we do travel anywhere from about like 25 to 30 miles, and half of it we'll just hike. We'll just get out there and hike for about half, and then the second half of the day is just travel whatever speed you want to go. Doesn't need to be hard. It's not meant to be competitive. It's just you move at your pace and then get to the finish line. And usually we'll be out there for about 8 hours. But what it does is like just teaches kids that, hey, it doesn't need to be like just an hour out there going hard to get your run in. It's like you can use this as enjoyment, just like connecting with nature, being out there longer, and being able to pack in such a way that you are prepared for whatever the day brings, right? Whether it's weather, and packing for different weather conditions, looking at the weather beforehand, food, making sure you have enough food for the day, packing the number of calories that you think you might need, or if you don't, like realizing like you're not going to starve to death if you don't get in enough calories, right? Things like that, and just helping them to be more confident and comfortable outdoors. And that's the whole like premise of the camp, is just teaching them about trail running and like everything it kind of involves trail running, and what goes into it and stuff. So yeah, so that's one of them. That's my kids' high school camp. And then the next week, I go straight from there to France for a Run the Alps camp. I'm an athlete guide with them this year. I was doing some adult camps for a while and took a couple years off of that. And this is my first adult camp back into that realm. It's very similar to my kids' camp. It's a little bit more laid back, but we're still teaching them a lot in these adult camps as well. And then from there, go straight to Alaska and run Mountain Marathon. Running Mountain Marathon with my son this year, which is going to be super cool. I'm excited
that's
about
really
that.
cool. Is
Yeah.
he in the youth? Is he in the youth division, or is he doing the main
Nope,
event?
he'll be in the youth division. So he's 14, and I've been getting him up some pretty good climbs, like teaching him how to
I know who I'm
power
cheering
hike, and
for.
yeah, he's going for it. I'm super excited. More excited for that race than my race.
Yeah,
But that'll be cool to have the whole family up there, and him and I running and racing that. Um, and then I
I'm
do
excited. I'm
cool.
excited to watch you
You know,
both. Yeah.
yeah. Hopefully they have a live feed this year. So I know the last couple of years, I think they've had a live feed. I just don't know how good it's been. I know the local news, stopped covering it quite as well as they were previous to COVID. So yeah,
Got it.
um, and
So,
then we're out to Steens. So
and what's Steens?
Steens is the high school running camp that I've been working at for the past like 16 years. It's a
Mm-hmm.
big cross country high school camp that's out in southeastern Oregon. It's kind of what I based a lot of my camp off of. They're specifically focused on cross country aspect of running, so we've got a lot of teams in for the 2 weeks of camp, and it's focused on building that team atmosphere for the coming cross country season. But what's cool about it is that we're out in the wilderness. It's basic, like bare bones camp, no electricity, no running water. Like you're sleeping in tents on the ground, and it's super minimal. And it's like my style of camp. And we trail run, and we like run cross country during the week. Like there's like, it's not like your typical like easy cross country camp in the middle of town staying in dorms. It's like it's super cool and gnarly and the best camp ever. So I've like been working there for the past 16 years. I'm one of the camp directors now, and it is awesome. It's the best camp in the world. So
That's amazing. I was fortunate to have a father who taught me how to spend time in the mountains as a skier, as a mountaineer. He was a ranger in the Tetons, but I needed a Max King mentor when I was in high school because I ran cross country and I just hated it. And I love my coaches for what they sacrificed in their time to give me, but they didn't know what they were doing when it came to fitness. Like I had no idea what an easy day was, or maybe I just wasn't listening. That's a possibility too. But I needed a Max King. I think I'd be a much better runner now if I had a Max King when I was in high school. And
Yeah.
I think I needed something a little closer to the earth than cross country was giving me.
Hmm.
I mean, running in a park with some hills in the Salt Lake City, suburbs or whatever is not the same thing as running on a trail and, getting that mountain experience or even that trail experience. So what a cool thing that you're doing for those that want to join this effort, send their kids there, go there themselves. Where should they go? To your website?
Yeah, my website is just maxkingtrc.com for Max King Trail Running Camp. And you can
Okay.
also check out Steens as well. What is that? Steens.camp is the website for that. You can just search Steens Running Camp and find it. But yeah, I mean, if it's like, hopefully, what I'm doing is helping a couple of kids who aren't that interested in like the specific track and maybe the structure of track and cross country to still enjoy running, then I feel like I've done a good job, and kind of like completing the goals that I'm setting out to accomplish. Hopefully, like some of these kids that are doing this kind of find the joy in nature and trail running that maybe they didn't see in running before. That's my whole hope.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. All right. Final question for you. And those of you who want to check out your camps, it's maxkingtrc.com.
Yep.
Max King Trail Running Camps.com, TRC.
Yep.
Okay. Last question.
Okay.
When is Max King running the Barkley marathons?
I can't tell you that, Joey. What are you like, trying to spoil it? I can't tell. I
Oh,
can't tell you
okay.
that.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, we're on a podcast. Is
We're on a
like,
podcast.
hey, I don't have any agreements in place with uh, Laz Lake over there,
I
right?
will.
So I have not promised my soul around not talking about Barkley marathons on a podcast, but
mm,
you tell me what you can tell me. That's according to the
I
rules.
will. I will tell you this. I will run the Barkley someday, soon.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I just figure it's a natural question because you're doing all these different kinds of things. You've been doing a bunch of adventure racing. You're good navigating. You have some orienteering background. You have speed. You have mountain chops. You have technical ability. It just seems like the kind of suffering that you would gladly, you would feel left out when you're not doing it.
I'll sign up for it. So it's on my list. I want to do it. I am at the mercy of Laz and his selection process. So
Okay,
yeah,
okay, but it is a hope of yours. So
yeah, it is.
that's interesting. I hope we get to watch you, and yeah, looking forward to seeing how that all pans out.
Yeah,
Max King, everybody, thanks so much for doing this, for having this conversation. So many awesome takeaways. We've got, you got to do it for the joy. You got to learn how to love what you're doing. If you don't, it's going to be hard to maintain the consistency that's going to get you anywhere. So really dial into that. The amazing things you're doing with the running camps, the so many great pieces of advice around your training, specifically getting the balance right. And if you're an ultra runner, get that nutrition right. You got to get those calories in. You got to get those carbs. And if you're a sub ultra person, somebody who's doing races in the anywhere from say 1 to 3 hours, those warm ups are going to be essential, and start to practice those in your workouts. Max King does have multiple tracer programs. You can check him out at tracerfitness.com. He's got a short and fast Cirque Series program that would be something like a Mount Marathon. He's got a marathon. If you're running a road marathon program, you can get his training through that one. What you've got a schemo program, which most people in North America are not interested in right now, but they might become this fall. And what else am I missing? There's another one. Oh, a base training program, a mountain
yeah.
base training program, which is awesome. Like I used that for months leading into the summer here and hit the ground running. this summer. So check Max out at tracerfitness.com. And I guess we'll sign off. Thanks so much, Max, for doing this.
Thanks, Joey.